My name is Shannon Murphy. I'm 36, a self-made interior designer in Columbus, Ohio, running a business that's finally taking off. I poured $35,000 into my mother's 60th birthday dinner, every cent for the upscale Short North restaurant, the live jazz band, the custom floral arrangements, even the engraved keepsake glasses. My name was on every contract, every deposit, every invoice. I didn't expect a parade or a thank you speech. I just wanted to sit at the table, watch my family celebrate, and feel like I belonged for once. But when I arrived, dressed, simply holding a handcrafted gift for my mother, my father stepped forward, his face hard as stone. "You're ruining the mood," he said loud enough for the guests and my mother to hear. "Leave." My sister didn't blink, didn't defend me, just watched as I walked out. I didn't yell or cry. I sat in my car, opened my phone, and canceled every payment tied to that night. You don't humiliate the person who funded your celebration and expect the party to go on. Stick around. This story of how their perfect night collapsed is just getting started, and the moment the bills piled up. That's not even the best part. If this hits close to home, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Would you walk away or fight back? Let me know. Your story matters here. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, I was always the dependable one in our family, the one who didn't need hand-holding or applause. My name is Shannon Murphy, and I learned early on that reliability didn't earn you love, it earned you expectations. My younger sister, barely 2 years younger, was the family's shining star. She was charming, impulsive, always the center of attention with her quick laugh and big dreams. Our parents adored her, their eyes lighting up when she walked into a room, while I was the shadow who made sure everything ran smoothly. By age 10, I was already setting the table, helping with her homework, or cleaning up when she forgot her chores. "Shannon, you're so responsible," my mother would say, like it was a compliment, but it always felt like a sentence. I'd watch my sister twirl through the house, leaving half-finished projects, and my parents would laugh it off. "She's just spirited," they'd say, while I was expected to be the steady one always. Our house, a modest 2-story in German village, was filled with warmth for everyone but me. My father, a gruff man, who worked long hours at a hardware store, reserved his smiles for my sister. He'd ruffle her hair, laugh at her half-baked stories, while I got a nod if I was lucky. My mother, softer but just as distant, had a habit of saying, "Shannon, you're fine, you always are," whenever I tried to share something about myself. It wasn't cruelty, not exactly, just a quiet assumption I didn't need them the way my sister did. I remember once at 12, I won a school art contest. I brought home the certificate proud, only to find my parents fawning over my sister's new dance recital costume. My certificate sat on the kitchen counter for weeks unnoticed until I tucked it away in a drawer. That was my role, quiet, self-sufficient, invisible. In high school, the gap widened. I graduated with a near-perfect GPA, earned a scholarship to Ohio State, and spent weekends working at a coffee shop to save for college. My parents showed up to my graduation, but only after my sister's cheerleading competition. They clapped politely, then rushed off to celebrate her third-place ribbon. I told myself it didn't sting, that I was used to it, but it did. It always did. Meanwhile, my sister floated through school, barely passing, yet every small win a passing grade. A prom date was treated like a miracle. "She's finding her way," my mother would say, brushing off her failures. I wasn't allowed to fail. I wasn't allowed to need. When I moved out for college, I called home every week, hoping for a connection, but the conversations always circled back to my sister, her latest drama, her latest dream. After college, I built my life step by step. I studied interior design, took on grueling internships, and eventually started my own firm. My clients loved my work: clean lines, thoughtful spaces, nothing flashy, but always functional. I bought a small apartment in German village, decorated it with care, and found pride in standing on my own. My sister, though, never settled. She bounced from job to job: event planner, 1-month boutique sales the next, always leaning on our parents when things fell apart. Once, when she totaled her car, my father sent her $4,000 without a second thought. I never asked for money, and they never offered. "You're the one we don't have to worry about," they'd say, as if that was enough. I internalized it, convinced myself that being steady was my strength, even if it made me invisible. In my 20s, I dated a guy named Brian for 3 years. He was kind at first, but over time I realized I was playing the same role, caretaker planner, the one who made things easy. When he left, he said, "Shannon, you're amazing, but you're just predictable." It cut deeper than I admitted. I spent months wondering if being steady, generous, reliable made me boring, unlovable. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone. I just kept moving, kept giving, kept showing up. Every birthday I sent thoughtful gifts, hand-picked books for my mother, custom playlists for my sister. Every holiday I hosted dinners cooked, cleaned, smiled through it all. I called my mother weekly, asked about my sister's latest job, her latest breakup, her latest dream. I told myself this was what big sisters did, even if it felt like pouring water into a cracked glass. When my mother's 60th birthday came up, my sister called me out of the blue. She didn't call often, usually just quick texts, emojis, or nothing at all. "Mom deserves something big," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. A huge party, fancy, the whole family, friends, everything. I could hear her pacing, already dreaming up something extravagant. "But we're tight on cash," she added, almost as an afterthought. "You know how it is." I did know. I'd heard it before, her big ideas, their empty wallets. I paused, staring out my apartment window at the brick-lined streets of German Village, and something in me shifted. Maybe this was my chance to be part of something, to feel like I mattered to them. I'd spent years on the outside watching my family celebrate each other while I stood in the background. This time, I wanted to step into the light. "I'll handle it," I said, surprising myself. "The whole thing, venue, food, music, decorations. Consider it my gift to Mom." There was a silence on the other end, then a quick, "Seriously? Oh my gosh. Shannon, you're the best." Her voice was warm, but it felt rehearsed, like she'd expected me to step in. My parents were thrilled when I told them. My mother hugged me over dinner, her eyes misty. "You're so good to us," she said. My father nodded, a rare gesture of approval. For the first time in years, I felt like I was inside their circle, not just orbiting it. I dove into planning, calling vendors, signing contracts, wiring deposits. I wanted it to be perfect, not for praise, but because I wanted to believe we could be a family that saw me. My sister sent me ideas, Pinterest boards, color swatches, a live jazz band she'd seen downtown. I made it happen, every detail my name on every contract. But I should have known better. In our family, generosity wasn't returned, it was expected. Love went to the loudest, the neediest, not the one who showed up with open hands. My sister took over the guest list, the theme, the vibe, while I handled the logistics. Her texts were short-clipped, like she was doing me a favor by letting me pay. My father called once to say, "Make sure it's classy, Shannon. Your mother deserves that." I nodded into the phone, ignoring the way his words landed, like a command, not a request. I told myself it was fine. I was used to it. I'd spent my life making things work, stepping back, letting others shine. But deep down, I felt the first cracks forming, a quiet warning I didn't yet understand. That night, as I finalized the contract for the Short North restaurant, I believed I was building something, a moment where I'd finally belong. I had no idea it was all about to unravel, and the person who'd light the match was the one I'd least expected, my own father, the man who'd always looked right through me. Planning my mother's 60th birthday dinner consumed my life for weeks. I threw myself into it, not because I wanted praise, but because I thought it could stitch our family back together. I booked a private room at a sleek restaurant in Short North, its exposed brick walls and candlelit tables perfect for the elegant vibe my sister wanted. I wired $20,000 for the deposit, non-refundable, my name on the dotted line. I hired a jazz trio. My mother loved their music, soft and nostalgic, the kind she'd hum while cooking Sunday dinners. I ordered custom floral centerpieces, peonies and roses in pale pinks and creams, and even designed engraved glass coasters as keepsakes for the guests. Every detail was deliberate, every choice a quiet plea to be seen. I worked late nights at my German village apartment, my laptop glowing with spreadsheets, vendor contracts, and schedules. My interior design clients were patient, but I was stretched thin, balancing their projects with this one night I believed could change everything. My sister Olive was all in on the vision, but none of the work. She sent me a flurry of texts, Pinterest links, for table settings, photos of gold-rimmed plates, a clip of a jazz band she'd seen at a bar. Make it look like this, she'd write. No please, no thank you. Just demands wrapped in emojis. I didn't mind at first. I was used to her taking the spotlight while I handled the heavy lifting. But the texts grew shorter, sharper, like I was her assistant, not her sister. Don't mess this up, Shannon, she wrote once, half joking, half serious. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over a reply, but I let it go. I told myself she was stressed that she meant well. I wanted to believe we were building this together, even if I was the one signing the checks. My father William called twice during the planning. The first time he said, "Make sure the menu's good, Shannon. No cheap stuff, your mother deserves better." His tone was clipped like he was giving orders to a caterer, not his daughter. The second call was worse. "Olive says you're handling everything." "Don't let her down," he said, as if I'd ever been the one to let anyone down. I swallowed the sting, nodded into the phone, and promised it would be perfect. My mother, Barbara, was the only one who seemed grateful. She called me one evening, her voice warm. "Shannon, this means so much to me," she said. "You're making it so special." I clung to those words, replaying them when doubt crept in. Maybe this time I thought they'd see me, not just what I could do, but who I was. But cracks started showing. A week before the party, I met Olive at a coffee shop in German Village to go over the guest list. She strolled in late, her hair tossed like she'd just stepped off a magazine cover, and slid into the booth with a distracted smile. "Looks good," she said, barely glancing at my spreadsheet. "Just make sure Aunt Agnes is seated far from Dad, they'll bicker all night." I nodded, jotting it down, but her tone felt off dismissive, like I was a detail she didn't have time for. When I asked about her role, would she greet guests, handle the toast? She laughed. "Relax, Shannon. I'll show up and look pretty. You've got this." Her words landed like a slap, casual but cutting. I forced a smile, told myself it was just Olive being Olive, but the unease settled in my chest like a stone. The next day I got a text from my best friend Lauren, who I'd known since our Ohio State days. We met at Goodale Park, sitting on a bench under the oaks, the air crisp with early fall. Lauren wasn't one for gossip, so when she hesitated, I knew something was up. "I saw Olive last week," she said, her voice low, "at a bar downtown with Brian." My stomach dropped. Brian, my ex, the one who'd called me predictable before walking out 3 years ago. They weren't just talking. Shannon Lauren added, her eyes searching mine. They were close, like laughing, touching the whole thing. I froze, my mind racing. Olive knew how much Brian had hurt me. She'd been there when I cried, when I rebuilt myself. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, but Lauren's face told me it wasn't. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought you should know." I didn't confront Olive. I couldn't. Not yet. I buried the hurt, focused on the party, and told myself I'd deal with it later. But it gnawed at me, the idea that my sister, the one I was breaking my back for, might be crossing a line I couldn't forgive. I kept planning, calling the restaurant to confirm the menu, roasted duck truffle risotto vegan options for Aunt Agnes. I double-checked the jazz trio's set list, ensuring they'd play my mother's favorite Ella Fitzgerald songs. I even designed a custom backdrop for photos, a soft ivory curtain with fairy lights, because Olive insisted it would pop on Instagram. Every task was a distraction, a way to keep the betrayal at bay. But the doubts grew louder. Why was Olive so distant? Why did my father's words feel like warnings, not encouragement? Why did my mother's gratitude feel like it came with a catch? The night before the party, I stood in my apartment staring at the gift I'd made for my mother, a hand-bound scrapbook of family photos, some from my childhood, others from holidays I'd organized. I'd spent weeks on it, each page a reminder of the years I'd poured into this family. I texted Olive one last time, asking if she'd help with setup. Her reply came hours later. "Busy, sorry, you're good. Right?" I didn't respond. I sat on my couch, the scrapbook in my lap, and felt the weight of it, all the money, the time, the hope I'd invested. I told myself it would be worth it, that tomorrow at the restaurant I'd walk in and feel like I belonged. But deep down, I sensed something was off. My father's coldness, Olive's indifference, the whisper of her with Brian, it was all building towards something I couldn't yet name. I went to bed that night, not with excitement, but with a quiet dread, like I was walking into a storm I'd planned myself. The night of my mother's 60th birthday dinner arrived, and I stood outside the Short North restaurant, clutching the scrapbook I'd made for her. The air was cool, the street buzzing with evening crowds, but my heart raced as I smoothed my navy dress, simple, understated, nothing like the flashy outfits I knew Olive would wear. Inside the room glowed with candlelight, peonies blooming on every table, the jazz trio warming up with a soft rendition of Ella Fitzgerald's Summertime. I'd poured $35,000 and countless hours into this night, and for a moment, I let myself believe it would matter. I walked in, scanning the room for my family, hoping for a smile, a nod, anything to make me feel like I belonged. The guests were already mingling: cousins, family, friends, my mother's old co-workers. Olive stood near the bar, radiant in a sequined gold dress, laughing with a group of her friends. She caught my eye, gave a quick wave, then turned back to her conversation. My mother Barbara was at the head table, her face lit up as she chatted with Aunt Agnes. I made my way over the scrapbook, heavy in my hands. "Mom," I said, setting it gently in front of her, "I made this for you." She opened it, her fingers tracing the photos, her eyes softening. "Shannon, this is beautiful," she said, pulling me into a hug. For a second I felt warm, seen, like maybe this was enough. But then my father William approached, his jaw tight, his suit crisp, but his expression cold. He barely glanced at the scrapbook. "Shannon," he said, his voice low but sharp, "you're dressed like you're going to a board meeting. This is your mother's night. Why can't you try to fit in?" The words hit like a punch, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. My mother froze, her smile faltering, but she didn't speak. Olive, still at the bar, looked over, but didn't move. I stood there, my face burning, the room suddenly too small. "Dad," I started, my voice steady, despite the tremor in my chest. "I planned this entire night. I paid for it. I'm here for Mom." He cut me off, his hand raised. "You're ruining the mood," he said louder now, drawing more eyes. "Just go. You don't need to be here." The room went quiet, the jazz trio's notes fading into the tension. I looked at my mother, waiting for her to say something, anything. She stared at her hands, silent. Olive sipped her drink, her face blank, like I was a stranger. Aunt Agnes frowned, her eyes darting between us, but she didn't speak. I didn't cry, didn't yell. I set the scrapbook down, turned and walked out, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. The cool night air hit me as I stepped outside, my breath catching. I stood by my car, the weight of it all crashing down, not just the money but the years of giving, of hoping, of believing they'd see me. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking, and opened the vendor apps. The restaurant, the jazz trio, the florist, all tied to my accounts, my deposits, my name. I canceled every payment one by one, my finger hovering over each confirmation. $35,000 gone with a tap. I didn't feel rage, just a quiet resolve, like I was finally drawing a line. I texted the restaurant manager a polite message. "Due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm unable to cover the remaining balance." Please contact the event organizer. The organizer was Olive, who'd insisted on being listed as the host even though I'd paid for everything. I didn't wait for a reply. I drove home to my German village apartment, the city lights blurring past, and sat on my couch staring at the wall. I wasn't proud, but I wasn't sorry either. An hour later, my phone lit up with a text from Olive. "Shannon, what's going on? Mom's freaking out. You need to fix this." No apology, no acknowledgement of what happened. Just another demand. I didn't respond. Then my mother called, her voice shaky. "Shannon, your father didn't mean it," she said. "Come back, please. We need you." I closed my eyes. The words I'd wanted for years, ringing hollow now. "Mom," I said, my voice calm. "I'm done fixing things for people who don't see me." I hung up, turned off my phone, and let the silence settle. I'd spent my life carrying this family, but tonight I was done. I didn't know what would happen next, how the night would unravel, or what they'd do when the bills came due, but I knew I wasn't going back. Not this time. Back in my German village apartment, I sat on my couch, the scrapbook I'd made for my mother still in its gift bag untouched since I'd walked out of the Short North restaurant. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the city outside. My phone stayed off, but I knew what was coming. I'd canceled $35,000 worth of payments, restaurant, jazz, trio, florist, everything, and left Olive listed as the event organizer to deal with the fallout. I didn't feel triumphant, just empty, like I'd finally let go of something I'd been carrying too long. I poured a glass of wine, stared at the brick wall across my living room, and waited for the chaos I'd unleashed to unfold. It didn't take long. By midnight, my phone, now powered on, was flooded with notifications. Olive had sent a string of texts, each one sharper than the last. "Shannon, the restaurant's freaking out. They're saying we owe them everything. What did you do? This is Mom's night. How could you?" No mention of my father's words. No hint of regret for standing by while he humiliated me. My mother left a voicemail, her voice trembling. "Shannon, the party's a mess. They're asking for payment and we don't have it. Please call me." I listened, then deleted it. My father didn't reach out. I wasn't surprised he never did. But the absence of his name on my screen still stung, a quiet confirmation of where I stood. The next morning I woke to a text from Lauren, my best friend from Ohio State. "Check Instagram," it read, followed by a link. I opened it, my heart pounding. Someone, a cousin's friend I later learned, had recorded the chaos at the restaurant after I left. The video showed the manager, polite but firm, approaching Olive at the head table, explaining that the payments had been canceled. Olive's face went pale, her gold dress glinting under the lights as she stammered, "There must be a mistake." The jazz trio packed up mid-song, their instruments silent. Waiters stopped serving trays of roasted duck left in the kitchen. Guests whispered, some grabbing their coats, others filming on their phones. My mother sat frozen, her hands clutching the scrapbook I'd given her, while my father stood red-faced, demanding to speak to the manager. Then Aunt Agnes stepped in. She was my mother's older sister, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. The video captured her standing up, her voice cutting through the room. "This is disgraceful," she said, pointing at my father. "You threw Shannon out, your own daughter who paid for every single thing here, and now you're surprised it's falling apart." The crowd went quiet. Phone's still recording. "She's been carrying this family for years, and you treat her like she's nothing. Shame on you, William. Shame on you all for letting it happen." Olive tried to interrupt, her voice high and defensive. "Aunt Agnes, you don't understand." But Agnes cut her off. "I understand plenty. You and your father owe Shannon an apology, not a bill." The video ended there, but it had already spread. By noon it had thousands of views on Instagram, with comments piling up. "Who treats their daughter like that?" one read. "Shannon's a saint for putting up with them," said another. Strangers were taking my side. Their words a strange comfort I hadn't expected. I scrolled through, my chest tight, not because of the support, but because it took a viral video for anyone to see what I'd been through. Lauren called me that afternoon, her voice urgent. Shannon, it's everywhere. People are furious at your dad and Olive. You okay? I wasn't sure how to answer. I'm fine. I said, the old habit slipping out. But I wasn't fine. I was angry, hurt, and oddly relieved, like I'd finally stopped pretending. Later that day, Olive texted again. Her tone different, less demanding, more desperate. Shannon, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. I didn't reply. Then my mother called, her voice softer now. Shannon, I didn't know it would turn out like this. Your father was wrong, but he's upset. Can we fix this? I stared at my phone, her words echoing the same empty promises I'd heard my whole life. Mom, I said, my voice steady. You watched him throw me out. You didn't say a word. There's nothing to fix. I hung up, my hands shaking, but my resolve firm. I wasn't going back to being the one who fixed everything, the one who swallowed her pain to keep the peace. By evening, the story had spread beyond Instagram. Local Columbus blogs picked it up with headlines like "Family Drama at Lavish Birthday Bash." A few of my clients sent messages not about work, but about the video. You didn't deserve, that one wrote. Even Aunt Agnes called, her voice gruff but warm. I'm proud of you, Shannon, she said. You stood up for yourself even if it was quiet. Don't let them pull you back in. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For years I'd thought no one noticed how much I gave, how little I got back. Now someone had, and it wasn't even my parents or Olive. The fallout wasn't just online. Lauren told me the restaurant had sent Olive a bill for the full amount, $35,000 plus late fees. My father, who'd always relied on me to cover family expenses, didn't have that kind of money. Olive, still job hopping, couldn't pay either. My mother was scrambling, calling relatives for help, but most were siding with me after the video. I didn't feel joy watching them struggle, but I didn't feel guilt either. They'd made their choices, my father's cruelty, Olive's silence, my mother's inaction. I'd spent decades trying to earn their love, but all I'd gotten was a role I never wanted, the fixer, the bank, the invisible daughter. That night I sat at my kitchen table, the scrapbook still unopened in its bag. I thought about Aunt Agnes standing up in that restaurant, saying what I'd never had the courage to say. I thought about the strangers online seeing my worth when my own family couldn't. And I thought about Olive, who I'd later learn had been texting Brian, my ex, for months long before Lauren saw them at that bar. The betrayal wasn't just at the party, it was deeper, older, a wound I'd ignored too long. I wasn't ready to confront it all, not yet, but I knew one thing: I was done carrying their weight. The bills, the drama, the apologies, they were theirs, now not mine. The days after the Short North restaurant disaster felt like a strange new world. My phone kept buzzing, texts from Olive, voicemails from my mother Barbara, even a curt message from a family friend asking why I'd ruined the party. My father William never reached out. I didn't expect him to. His silence was louder than any apology could have been, a final nail in the coffin of a relationship I'd spent years trying to build. I stayed in my German village apartment, the scrapbook I'd made for my mother still in its gift bag, a reminder of what I'd hoped for and what I'd lost. But something had shifted inside me. For the first time, I wasn't trying to fix it, wasn't scrambling to make things right. I was done. Olive's texts grew more frantic as the week went on. Shannon, we're drowning in debt from the party. You have to help. One read. Another, this is on you. Mom's heartbroken. I read them, my stomach twisting, but I didn't reply. Then late one evening, she sent a longer message, her tone softer, almost pleading. I didn't know Dad would do that. I should have said something. Can we talk? I stared at the words, waiting for them to stir. Something, guilt, hope, anything. But all I felt was exhaustion. Olive's regret came too late, and it wasn't even regret, it was desperation. She wasn't sorry for hurting me. She was sorry the bill came due. Then came the call that cracked everything open. It was Lauren, my best friend, her voice tight with urgency. "Shannon, you need to hear this," she said. She'd run into a mutual friend from college who'd seen Olive with Brian, my ex, the one who'd called me predictable more than once. Not just at the bar Lauren had mentioned before the party, but for months, maybe longer. Texts, late-night drinks, cozy dinners. Olive had known how much Brian's betrayal hurt me, how I'd rebuilt myself after he left. Yet she'd been meeting him, laughing with him, crossing a line I couldn't unsee. Lauren paused, then added, "She was at his place last week." "Shannon?" "After the party." I sat on my couch, the phone pressed to my ear, the weight of it sinking in. It wasn't just the party, not just my father's words or my mother's silence. It was Olive choosing herself, always herself, over me. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. The truth was enough to sever the last thread tying me to her. I blocked her number, then my mother's, then my father's. I didn't want explanations or apologies, they'd be hollow, like every promise they'd ever made. The Instagram video from the restaurant was still circulating now with tens of thousands of views. Comments kept pouring in, strangers calling my father cruel, Olive selfish, my mother complicit. "You're better off without them," one wrote. "Family doesn't treat you like that," said another. I didn't feel validated, not exactly just seen for once by people who owed me nothing. Aunt Agnes sent a text, short but firm. "You did the right thing, Shannon. Don't look back." I saved it, her words a lifeline in the storm. The financial fallout hit my family hard. Lauren heard through a cousin that Olive and my parents were scrambling to cover the $35,000 bill. My father had taken out a loan, something he'd never done when I was the one paying. Olive was selling her designer clothes, online her Instagram stories now filled with deals instead of party selfies. My mother had reached out to relatives, but most swayed by Aunt Agnes, and the video refused to help. I didn't check their social media, didn't call to see how they were coping. I'd spent decades worrying about their problems, their feelings, their needs. Now I was choosing mine. A week later, I met Lauren at Goodale Park. The air was crisp, the leaves turning gold, and for the first time in years I felt lighter. We sat on a bench sipping coffee, and I told her everything, not just the party, but the years of being the invisible daughter, the one who gave and gave until there was nothing left. I thought if I kept showing up, they'd love me. I said, my voice steady. But love shouldn't feel like a transaction. Lauren nodded, her eyes soft. "You're enough, Shannon," she said. "You always were." Those words hit harder than any apology from my family could have. Here's what I learned, and I want you to hear it too. Your worth isn't tied to what you do for others. I spent my life believing that if I gave enough money, time, heart, my family would see me. But some people will take everything you offer and still push you away. Don't let them define you. Don't let their blindness dim your light. If they can't see your value, walk away, not with anger, but with clarity. Set boundaries, protect your peace, and choose yourself because you deserve to be seen, not just used. I'm not saying it's easy. Cutting ties with my family felt like carving out a piece of myself. But it also gave me space to breathe, to build a life where I'm enough, no conditions required. To everyone listening, think about this. Who in your life takes more than they give? Who expects you to carry their weight while ignoring yours? Don't wait for a disaster to see it. Don't wait for a viral video to know your worth. Walk away from those who diminish you and surround yourself with people who lift you up, like Lauren, like Aunt Agnes, like the strangers who saw my story and spoke up. I'm not going back to my family, not now, maybe not ever. That's not revenge, it's freedom. And it's a choice I'm making for me. Thank you for listening to my story, for seeing me when I felt invisible. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to walk away from someone who didn't see your worth? How did you find the strength to do it? Your stories matter, and I'd love to hear them. Let's keep this conversation going.